Hi, I'm Willow. Today I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. You know that saying about never mixing family and business? Well, I learned that lesson the hard way when I married into the Maxwell family. My husband Matthew's father, Richard Maxwell, was the CEO of Maxwell Innovations, a tech company he built from nothing. When Matthew and I got married 3 years ago, Richard offered me a position in the marketing department. "You've got talent, Willow," he said during our wedding reception, crystal champagne flute in hand. "I could use someone with your creative thinking." Matthew squeezed my hand. "Dad never offers jobs to family. This is his way of accepting you." How could I refuse? It seemed perfect. A prestigious job at a growing company and a chance to impress my new father-in-law. I accepted on the spot. 2 weeks after our honeymoon, I walked into Maxwell Innovations for my first day. Richard greeted me in the lobby, all smiles and firm handshakes. "Welcome aboard, Willow. Sandra from HR will get you settled." He gestured to a stern-looking woman beside him. "Mr. Maxwell speaks highly of your capabilities," Sandra said, her voice professionally flat. "We expect great things." For the first year, everything was wonderful. My campaigns were successful, the team respected me, and Richard invited us for Sunday dinners where he'd toast to family and success. Then things changed. It started small. Richard questioning my decisions in meetings, cutting my presentations short. "Is something wrong?" I asked Matthew over dinner one night. "Your dad seems different with me lately." He shrugged. "Dad gets like this sometimes. He goes through phases where he tests people. Just keep doing your job." But it got worse. My proposals were suddenly not innovative enough. My team was reassigned to other projects. One morning, Diane, Richard's assistant of 15 years, stopped by my office. "Willow, do you have a minute?" she asked, closing the door behind her. "Sure. What's up?" Diane sat down, fidgeting with her bracelet. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but Richard has been having meetings about the marketing department. He's planning changes and—" She hesitated. "And what?" "He mentioned your name specifically, not in a good way." My stomach dropped. Why would he do that? My numbers are good. Diane leaned forward. "This isn't about performance. Victor from the board questioned why Richard's son's wife was heading major campaigns, suggested it looked like nepotism. But Richard hired me. Richard cares about perception more than anything. His image, the company's image." Diane stood to leave. "Just be prepared." That night, I tried talking to Matthew about it. "Your dad's been undermining me at work." He looked up from his laptop. "Dad's under a lot of pressure with the new investors." "This is more than pressure, Matt. I think he's planning to let me go." Matthew closed his laptop. "That's ridiculous. He wouldn't fire family." "Would you talk to him?" He sighed. "Fine. I'll call him tomorrow." The next day at work, Richard summoned me to his office. "Willow, take a seat," he said, not looking up from his computer. I sat across from his massive desk, waiting. "Matthew called me this morning," he finally said, eyes cold. "Apparently, you have concerns about your position here." "I've noticed some changes in how you treat me and my work," I replied carefully. He leaned back. "If your work was exceptional, there'd be no reason for concern, would there?" "My results speak for themselves. The Johnson campaign exceeded targets by 27%. That was months ago." He waved dismissively. "What have you done lately?" "You've been blocking my recent proposals and reassigning my team," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Richard's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing me of sabotaging you?" "I'm stating facts. Every proposal I've submitted in the last 3 months has been rejected without explanation." "Perhaps they weren't good enough." He tapped his fingers on the desk. "Do you think you deserve special treatment because you're married to my son?" "No, I expect fair treatment based on my work. Nothing more, nothing less." He laughed coldly. "The real world doesn't work that way, Willow. Nobody gets exactly what they deserve." Is that a threat? "It's business reality." He glanced at his watch. I've scheduled your quarterly evaluation for Friday. We'll discuss your future with the company then. The evaluation meeting. That's where everything changed. I arrived early, portfolio of achievements in hand. Richard was already there with Sandra from HR and Victor from the board. A surprise addition. "Take a seat, Willow," Richard said without smiling. Victor nodded politely. "Mrs. Maxwell." "Miss Parker," I corrected. I'd kept my last name professionally. "Let's get to the point," Richard said, sliding a folder toward me. "Your performance has been declining steadily. Your campaigns lack innovation. Your team management has been questioned. And frankly, your attitude has become problematic." I opened the folder. Inside were cherry-picked statistics and out-of-context feedback. "This isn't accurate," I said. "You've deliberately excluded my successes." "These are the metrics that matter," Sandra interjected. Richard looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. "After careful consideration, we believe it's best to part ways. We're letting you go. Performance issues." The words hung in the air. My father-in-law was firing me. "Is this because Victor questioned my position as your son's wife?" I asked bluntly. Victor's eyes widened. Richard's jaw tightened. "That's inappropriate and unfounded," Richard snapped. "Diane told me about your concerns with perception," I continued. "How convenient that suddenly my performance is an issue." "That's enough," Richard stood. "Sandra will handle the paperwork. You'll receive 2 weeks severance, more than generous given the circumstances." 2 weeks? For a senior position? That's below industry standard. I closed the folder and pushed it back. "Unless you're worried I might pursue a wrongful termination claim?" Richard's face flushed. "Are you threatening me?" "No, just wondering why you're in such a rush to push me out with minimal compensation. Seems suspicious." Sandra cleared her throat. "Perhaps 4 weeks would be more appropriate given tenure." Victor nodded. 4 weeks is standard for someone at director level." Richard glared at them both. "Fine, 4 weeks. But I want her belongings cleared out today." I left the building in a daze. When I got home, Matthew was waiting. "Dad called me," he said. "What happened?" "Your father fired me because I'm your wife. Said it was performance issues." Matthew frowned. "Dad wouldn't do that. If he let you go, there must have been legitimate reasons." I stared at him. "Are you serious right now? You're taking his side?" "I'm not taking sides. But Dad built that company. He doesn't make decisions lightly." "He made this one pretty damn lightly, Matt. He fabricated performance issues to cover the fact that he's firing me because a board member questioned nepotism." Matthew shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. He hired you in the first place." "Yeah, when it made him look good. Generous father-in-law giving his son's wife a job, but now it's a liability, so I'm gone." "You're making this personal when it's business," Matthew insisted. "It became personal the moment your father decided my career was expendable to protect his image. And it's even more personal that my husband doesn't believe me." That night, I slept in the guest room. The next morning, I called Diane. "I heard what happened," she said. "I'm so sorry." "I need your help, Diane. Richard's been planning this for months, hasn't he?" A pause. "Yes, since Victor raised concerns at the board meeting in March." "Would you be willing to tell me more? Off the record?" Diane hesitated. "What are you planning, Willow?" "Justice. Nothing illegal. Just truth." Another long pause. "Meet me at Riverview Cafe at 2. I'll bring what I can." Diane arrived with a notebook full of meeting dates and conversations she'd overheard. "Richard started documenting minor issues with your work right after that board meeting," she explained. "He told Sandra to start building a case." "Did he ever directly mention firing me?" I asked, scanning her notes. "Yes, about 6 weeks ago. He told Sandra, 'We need to accelerate Willow's exit strategy. The Johnson presentation is coming up, and I can't risk her getting credit for it.' That was after you'd already done most of the work." "Who took over that presentation?" "James from your team. Richard made him promise not to mention your contribution." "That little weasel," I muttered. "He was my mentee." Diane nodded. Richard offered him your job the same day. Why are you helping me? I asked. Diane looked down at her coffee. I've been with Richard for 15 years. He's done this before, to his brother-in-law, to his college friend. Anyone who threatens his control gets eliminated. It's not right. Did those other people just take it? Most did. Some tried to fight back but didn't have enough leverage. Richard's very good at covering his tracks. What about Victor? Would he talk to me? Maybe. He seemed uncomfortable with how things played out. Victor agreed to meet me the following week at his country club. I didn't know Richard was planning to terminate you, he said as we walked the grounds. He presented it as a straightforward performance case. It wasn't, I replied. He manufactured evidence after you raised concerns about nepotism. Victor stopped walking. That's a serious accusation? It's the truth. I have documentation. He studied me. What do you want, Miss Parker? Information. How much influence does Richard have over the board? Considerable, but not absolute. Several members have been questioning his leadership style lately. The company's growth has plateaued. Plateaued or declined? I pressed. Victor hesitated. Between us? Last quarter's numbers were down 12%. Richard blamed market conditions. And you believed him? Not entirely. 3 major clients reduced their contracts after respected team members left the company. Let me guess. People Richard pushed out? That's my suspicion, yes. What would it take for the board to reconsider his position? Victor raised an eyebrow. Evidence of mismanagement or ethical breaches. But Richard is careful. Not careful enough, I replied. Over the next month, I built my case. Diane provided meeting notes showing Richard's targeted campaign against me. I reached out to former employees who'd experienced similar treatment. Most importantly, I found evidence of how Richard's personal vendettas had affected company performance. Meanwhile, things with Matthew deteriorated. You need to move on, he said during one of our increasingly frequent arguments. Find another job instead of obsessing over Dad. This isn't just about a job, I replied. It's about your father's pattern of manipulative behavior. You're being dramatic. Dad's built an incredible company. At what cost? He fires anyone who threatens his ego? That's not true. Dad values loyalty above everything. I laughed bitterly. No, he values control above everything. And you enable him? I enable him? He gave you an amazing opportunity? An opportunity he snatched away the moment it was inconvenient, and you're standing by him like always. Matthew grabbed his keys. I'm going to stay with my parents for a few days. You clearly need space. Go ahead, run to Daddy. That's what you always do when things get tough. He didn't come back. 2 months after my firing, I requested a meeting with the full board of directors. To my surprise, they agreed. Richard's face when I walked into the boardroom was worth everything. What is she doing here? He demanded. Miss Parker requested time with the board, Victor explained calmly. We agreed to hear her out. This is completely inappropriate, Richard sputtered. She was terminated for cause. Members of the board, I began. I'm here today because Maxwell Innovations has a leadership problem. Richard snorted. This is ridiculous. A disgruntled ex-employee? Let her speak, an older board member interrupted. For the next 30 minutes, I presented my findings. The pattern of personal vendettas, the capable employees lost due to Richard's ego, the stagnating growth that correlated with his increasing control. As you can see from these financials, I said, pointing to my presentation, client retention dropped 18% in departments where Richard removed key personnel and replaced them with loyalists. Where did you get those numbers? Richard demanded. Former colleagues who care more about the company than protecting you, I replied. And before you threaten legal action, everything I'm presenting is factual and documented. Miss Parker raises concerning points, Victor said when I finished. This is slander, Richard hissed. She's bitter about being terminated for poor performance. Actually, I countered. After my termination, the Johnson client specifically requested to work with me. They've since moved their $3 million account to my new marketing consultancy. Several board members exchanged glances. You what? Richard stood up. Johnson wasn't the only one, I continued. Peterson Industries and Westland Group have also signed with me. Apparently, they valued my stale ideas enough to follow me out the door. Those are Maxwell clients, Richard shouted. Were Maxwell clients, Victor corrected. Richard, please control yourself. I'd like to add, I said calmly, that I never solicited these clients. They reached out to me after hearing about my departure. I simply offered them the level of service they were accustomed to. The meeting ended with the board requesting time to discuss. I left knowing I'd landed a significant blow. 3 weeks later, Richard was asked to step down as CEO. To focus on strategic advisory, the press release said. The real reason was clear to those who mattered. When the news broke, Matthew finally called. Did you do this? He demanded. I presented facts. The board made their decision. You destroyed my father's legacy out of spite. No, Matthew. Your father destroyed his own legacy when he chose ego over ethics. I just made sure people saw the truth. He built something amazing, and you tore it down because you couldn't handle being fired. Is that what he told you? That I couldn't handle rejection? Ask yourself why Johnson, Peterson, and Westland, clients worth over $8 million in annual revenue, all followed me out the door. Silence on the line. Your father didn't value me, or anyone who wouldn't bow to his authority. The sad part is, he doesn't value you either. You're just another piece he controls. I want a divorce, he said flatly. I'm not surprised. You always chose him over us anyway. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Richard's reputation in the industry was in tatters as more former employees came forward with stories. Maxwell Innovations was restructuring under new leadership. As for me, my consultancy is thriving. I've hired 5 of the talented people Richard pushed out over the years. We just won Agency of the Year in our category. Last week, I ran into Sandra from HR at a conference. She looked uncomfortable seeing me. Congratulations on your success, she said stiffly. Thank you, Sandra. How's Richard doing these days? She glanced around before answering. Not well. His health has declined. The board removed him completely last month. No one returns his calls. That's unfortunate, I replied, not meaning it. Matthew blames you for everything. I smiled. That's his choice. Just like staying silent while his father manipulated people was his choice. You know, he tried to block your agency from industry events, Sandra admitted. It backfired completely, made everyone more curious about the woman who took down Richard Maxwell. I didn't take him down, Sandra. He did that himself. I just refused to be another casualty. I walked away without looking back. So that's my story. Richard thought he could discard me with a cold dismissal about performance issues, but he didn't realize I would be his biggest performance issue of all. The man who built an empire on controlling others lost everything when he couldn't control me. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who abused their power? What did it cost you, and was it worth it in the end?